Hello and welcome to the show. Today has been a long day because I spent a lot of time hanging out with my colleagues from the APVA. I think that's the is it Association of Professional Voice Actors, or is it Podcasters and Voice Actors or something like that? Well, anyway, they're the APVA. If you're curious, because you're thinking of starting a podcast, then use those initials, search on Instagram or, search for the website, it should come up. And it might be a useful, handy resource in case you're looking for a community of podcasters. And yeah, if you're trying to get into the industry, to be a voice actor or to be a podcaster and you're looking for an easy way in, then apart from the podcast episodes that I've made where I talk about those sorts of things, there might be a good resource to have a look at as well. So my hanging out with them today was mostly was a social thing, but if we ever do business related things in the future, then I'll hop on here real quick, let you guys know, so that you can share some of the business goodness that we've been up to. So yeah, that's what I spent most of my day doing. So anyway, today is a late night recording, just in case I sound a little slow and a little foggy. That's the reason why. It was a long day, came back home, and the usual kids, homework, just so that we can head into Sunday relaxed and free, and so that Monday we can head into school without any hassles. So, okay, the what we had been on was dealing with business objections. Yes. And of course, objection is any reason that people give you for not wanting to go ahead with the sale or not wanting to go ahead with the relationship or not wanting to go ahead with the agenda. And of course, I'm talking about primarily a business context. But like I've said, the same also apply to those of you who are in a work context or a career context because it works as well. So I think from the last episode, what did we do? I think that's when we handled when people say, I need more time to think about it. I think that's what we did the last time. I need more time to think about it. These are things that also come up in a work environment, in a corporate context, where your head of department says, I need to think more, need to think some more about it. And some of the reasons why that can happen, we explored some of those in yesterday's episode about how there might be genuine misunderstanding about what it is that you're proposing, might be some misinformation, things like that. And I gave a couple of suggestions about how you can work through these sorts of issues. So if this is your first time listening to the podcast and you want to know how to get around situations where people say, I need more time to think about it, whether in the business context or in the corporate context, then listen to yesterday's episode. Although I was focusing primarily on sales and business, but you can take and apply the principles in the work environment as well. So today we're going to look at an objection that my brothers and sisters who also started off in the wedding or the event space. This is something that we used to get all the time. Now, for those of you in other business spheres, maybe you're an architect, you're a business consultant, or you sell catfish, or let's see what else. You're a fashion entrepreneur. I don't know if you guys get these objections that much, but in the wedding space, especially photographers, event planners, yeah, we used to get this a lot. And that is when someone says, we have had bad experiences in the past. Now, the person that you're having a conversation with is most likely not going to be that eloquent or that forthright to say, we have had bad experiences in the past. So in the wedding photography space, these were the kinds of variations that we would get. You'd be talking to someone, the conversation would seem to be going okay. And then the lady would now say, well, you know what? At my sister's wedding, her wedding photographer, then this happened, then that happened, then that happened. And, they don't come out and say it, but the implications are clear. You talk a good game, looks like you can do what you say you're going to do. I like the album, but at my sister's wedding, the guy also looked like he knew what he was saying and all whatnot. But then this happened, and then that happened, and then that happened. So those are the kind of ways that it will come off in wedding photography. And I know an event planner and I think everything seemed to be going smooth. And then the person said, well, at my grandmother's burial, the wedding planner this, the event planner this, the party planner this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then that happened. So people might not be that forthright or eloquent or come out and say, I've had bad experiences in the past. That's the reason why I don't trust you. That's the reason why I don't want to go with you. But it is an objection that exists nonetheless. Some of you might have heard about it, but if you haven't, I'm sure these examples that I've given from the wedding and the event space, you guys should be able to relate. When the person starts talking about, this happened, that happened to me, that happened to my friend, that happened to my sister, that happened to my brother, that happened to my blah, 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 blah. So, these kind of situations arise where there have been previous vendor issues. Now, I know that in the past, I have said let's not call ourselves vendors for particular reasons. And if you're interested in knowing why I say we shouldn't call ourselves vendors, no matter what profession it is that we're involved in, whether we sell solar panels or we do wedding photography or we sell catfish, if you want to know what my opinions are on that, then search within your podcast app. No, there's this other service. What's it called? I can't remember anyway. But if you can find a website that's a podcast aggregator, search within my own podcast, the podcast episodes, just put vendor over there. The episode will come up and then you can listen to it. But so even though I've said let's not call ourselves vendors before, permit me to just use that term for lack of a better term now. So there might be situations where people have had previous vendor issues. Sometimes it's issues around customer service. Sometimes it's issues around product failure, service failures. Sometimes it's issues around unmet expectations. They thought you said you were going to do this, they were expecting you to do this, but you didn't end up doing that. So these are the sorts of ways where these things can come about. Sometimes it's not really your fault because there's some internal dissatisfaction on the part of the customer, maybe because you implemented something poorly. Okay, well, in that case, it would be your fault. But what I'm just trying to say is sometimes you're kind of missing the plot, but they're not saying anything. So at the end of the day, you don't even have the chance to try and redress and to make things right. So these things happen. Vendor issues on your end, internal dissatisfactions on their own end, on the customer's end, and they don't say anything. And sometimes it's because there might have been unrealistic expectations that might have been set by the vendor or by other people as part of their own sales team. And this happens in situations where the sales and marketing function is separate from the fulfillment function or the technical function. So if you're one of those businesses where, let's go back to the wedding example, all you do is you grab the camera and you shoot. But then your sister or your wife or your brother handles the sales. There are times when your brother or your sister will say, that's not a problem. My guy can do this. He's the man. He's the best for the job. And then you book the gig. But then they don't pass along those expectations to you. So on the day of shooting, and when it comes to fulfillment, you're not able to meet all those expectations. So this is where some of these breakdowns can occur. And I'm currently working with a company that are in the alternative energy space where there might have been situations, I haven't quite clarified, but it's looking like there might have been situations where these sorts of things happen. Sales and marketing people say this can be done, but then the technical people show up on site. They've not been told, or the things that the salespeople told the final customer are kind of inaccurate, and it leads to some complications along the way. So this happens because there is a communication breakdown or ineffective communication between the sales and marketing people and the fulfillment people or the technical people where it's separated. And that leads to frustration on the part of the customer and also on the part of the people who have to deliver the service. So these are the reasons why you're talking, everything looks like it's going okay. And then they start giving you this story of, my neighbor down the street, he got solar panels and they said it was Dubai grade, blah, blah, blah. But 2 weeks ago, his house burnt down, blah, blah, blah. That whole conversation basically is just the customer saying, I don't trust you because we've had bad experiences in the past, or I've heard of bad experiences in the past. So these things can come up. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast for the last couple of episodes, it's not going to come as a surprise what I'm going to say to you right now, because the principle, the formula, the framework is still the same. First off, you want to acknowledge, show some empathy, because nobody wants to feel like they're just, talking out of their bum, as if they're just manufacturing things just for the sake of manufacturing. So acknowledge, empathize, and validate their concerns. So like, oh, wow, terribly sorry. So sad to hear that. These things do happen, unfortunately, blah, blah, blah. Just acknowledge. Let them know you don't think that they're talking total BS. Then, a mistake that people make, they try to defend their industry. Do not try to defend your industry. Don't make it look like, no, wedding photographers are totally ethical and this and this and that and that. Clearly, something went wrong. You should not be making a judgment one way or another, whether it was your brother, your fellow colleague, wedding photographer, who was at fault or not. Or if it's back to the solar place, you should be making a judgment one way or another who is at fault. So don't defend your industry. Rather, you should be asking clarifying questions. You should be trying to figure out what went wrong, or what were you expecting? What did the other person say? How soon did you realize there was a problem? All those sorts of things. And the reason why you're asking all these sorts of questions is because when you get all this background information, it is now that you're going to be able to make a play for what we call risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is just this. The customer thinks that doing business with you is a risky proposition. So you have to do a couple of things to calm them down. Sometimes calming them down means you show how your company is anticipating for these kinds of failures. It is only when you've asked all these questions, you'll be able to tell the person, oh, okay, madam, I understand. Yes, truly, it might have been Dubai grade batteries, or, by the way, I'm just making stuff up. I'm not in the alternative energy space. So you say, yeah, it could have been this kind of battery, that kind of battery, this kind of installation, and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes, because of poor building codes in Lagos and in Abuja, sometimes the house is wired like this, the house is wired like that. It can cause this problem, that problem. That is the reason why in our own company, we not only install the solar panels, we also have these electrical panels that we fabricate that cause, that isolate systems and trip off in the case of faulty wiring and blah blah blah. This is a fail-safe. It'll prevent the house from burning down, and apart from that, it will automatically flag our system. We'll now be able to call you to say, madam, did this happen, and we can start troubleshooting and solve the problem. The only way you can have this conversation is if you ask questions in the first place. Oh, madam, what went wrong? Okay, what did your neighbor say? When did this thing start? What did they notice before this? Can I even come and have a look? Because sometimes, that might help. If it looks like this is a sweet deal, it was looking like it was going to close until the lady started talking about her neighbor, it might be worth driving down to the estate, having a look at the neighbor's house, asking a few questions. These are ways of showing credibility and building trust. So it's by asking all these questions that you can now move into risk mitigation. You can now tell the person that, oh, okay, no problem. I understand how it happened like this, it happened like that. But for our own services, for the way we shoot our own weddings, this is the reason why we do it like this, so that we can avoid this problem, XYZ problem, that problem, and we can deliver on this, and we can deliver on this, and deliver on that. So that is part of risk mitigation. You're trying to anticipate for these kinds of failures that this person has had bad experiences in the past, or had heard of bad experiences in the past. Part of risk mitigation sometimes also involves giving guarantees, or a trial, or some money back guarantee, or maybe a warranty or something like that. These are also parts of risk mitigation strategy. I'm not saying that this is what you should do. Quite frankly, I'm not a fan of these tools, because a lot of people just quickly rush to this sort of thing. And anyway, let me not poison your minds, but it's an option when it comes to risk mitigation. So just know that you can't move to risk mitigation. This is how we're covering from the risk. This is how we're different. You can't get to that unless you ask questions. Okay. Then, also, it would help if you can provide case studies or references, some form of third-party validation. That's exactly what is going on there. And remember, I've told you guys in the past that I don't say, this is the project I did for Oga Chukudi. Here's Oga Chukudi's phone number. You call him, he can vouch for me. I don't go that far, but I try to talk about similar projects that the person can relate to, things like that. I'm just trying to put it out there that I've done something similar. We've worked on a similar situation. This is how we cater to this. This is how we cater to that. Just to leave open that idea, that possibility that, if need be, I can provide third-party validation. I'm not a total jambite. This is not the first time I've handled this sort of thing. Then it also helps where after you ask the questions and you try and show how you guys are different, try and set some realistic expectations. You need to be able to say what is possible and what is not possible. So back to the solar panel and inverter thing. You've spoken about the fabrication, how the circuit is going to protect the building and everything. You still need to let the madam know that, okay, madam, even with all these things put in place, still, these are some things that you need to do to make sure that there's no, that Yawa is not going to bust here and there. You need to make sure that you don't iron with the inverter. You need to make sure that you don't put water pump on the inverter. Like I said, this is not my space, so I'm just making stuff up. I'm assuming that sometimes maybe excessive load can be a problem. It's just my own guess. But whatever it is, those of you who are in the alternative energy space, you will know what are the do's and don'ts. So you need to have that conversation so that Madame Ekundayo or Madame Garba or whoever, she knows going in, these are realistic expectations. If you're doing this, you're pushing things too far. If you're doing this, you get optimum results. If you're doing this, something is going to break. So set realistic expectations. Now, your tone in all of this should be respectful. Your tone should be concerned. Your tone should be curious. You shouldn't be pushy. It's not about trying to close the deal by all means, and it shouldn't be about being aggressive. We're trying to build comfort and we're trying to build trust here. So be mindful of your tone, especially for guys like me. If you think you're like me, who can be a little bit more on the direct side. So watch your tone before you make things worse. And the goal of asking all these questions is we want to use this person's past experience. What have they experienced or what have they heard happen to their friend, to their neighbor, to their whoever? We're trying to use these experiences to differentiate ourselves because we're trying to build a long-lasting relationship here. Because the goal is not to just sell solar panels to this lady. The goal is that you do such a correct job here that she even talks to the other neighbors like, okay, yes, what happened to Engineer Kunle's home? It's unfortunate, but these people, they're the real deal. They handled my house. It's been 6 months. There has been no issues. If you want to do solar, let me, talk to me. Let me call my guys. That is what we're looking for. So we're trying to build long-lasting business relationships here. But I want to give a word of caution because there are some times that we have all these conversations, but then we have a nagging feeling at the back of our minds. And I'm talking about the business provider here. You have a nagging feeling. And I think this is why. There are some businesses like wedding photography that are different from, solar panels, inverters, that kind of thing. When it comes to wedding photography, there are some artistic considerations that go in there. Now, when it comes to solar panels and blah, 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 and things like that, there are lots of technical considerations that go there. Now, when it comes to technical specifications, it is easier to satisfy. If you say you're going to hook up this system, it's going to provide, how do you measure electricity now? Is it amps or whatever? It's going to provide 80 amps of power consistently for 40 hours in a week. If there's no NEPA, that's a technical specification. At the end of the day, your system either provided 40 hours of power during the week or it didn't. That's a technical specification. You met it, you didn't meet it. when it comes to artistic things, wedding photography, videography, there's some, personal taste, personal sense of style that is involved. So there are times that you might be talking to someone and you think like, man, it's like this babe, this bride, it's like she's a little fussy. You feel like you might deliver on everything and she might still find some reasons to say something went wrong, something went wrong, something went wrong. If you're in that situation and you're still having like a nagging thing at the back of your mind, even though you followed all these processes, maybe it's time to follow your intuition and to run away. Because all money is good, but clean money, clean revenue without hassle, that's the best. Because me, I can testify. I've been in situations where I had my nagging feelings, but I needed the money. And then you take the money. And there's sometimes that you hold 400, 300, 400K in your hand. But after all the wahala, you're like, should I even have collected this money? And then there's some money that the one that enters your pocket is only 100K. But the experience is so clean and so good that your mind is at rest. So it's a personal thing. It depends. There's some people that will say, well, money is money. Let me collect that 400K and go with the hassle. It's better than me collecting 100K that will give me peace of mind. So it depends on you. Yeah, that's just my word of caution at the end of the day. You can run through these processes and you just feel like, there's this nagging thing at the back of my mind. If I choke head inside here, it can blow up here, it can blow up there. So just consider, should I just go in it for the money or should I just run away? By the way, I've known some people who say, you know what, this is a potentially dicey situation. So let me go all in for the money. What I'll do is I'll jack up my price so that when they quarrel, at least it's worth the issue, or at least there's money that can use to, fix the mistake or fix whatever the issues are. But that's a personal issue between you and your business partners. But for now, when people just know that when people say we've had bad experiences in the past, sorry, even though they don't say it, but they start giving you stories about my brother did this, this is what happened. My neighbor did this, this is what happened. The last time I hired a caterer, this is what happened. When they do that, you're trying to be respectful, courteous, concerned, curious, try and slow things down, ask questions. You're trying to figure out what went wrong, what were the expectations. You're just trying to show that, okay, this is how you're different. And if things go wrong, this is how you guys deal with these sorts of things. We're different. So why can't we be just best friends and let's go ahead and make this thing happen? So that's the whole approach, pretty much. So thank you very much for your time and attention. It's 23 minutes. Okay, so let me just wrap this thing up. Yeah, so connect with me on WhatsApp. The phone number is 080-6466-2140. The country code is +234 for those of you who are not Nigerian. Then LinkedIn. My name is Tabishima Ayede. I'm the host of the show. You can confirm the spelling of my name from the link where you're listening to this episode. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.